Słuchasz podcastu Agni Ajurweda zrozumiale i dostępnie, odcinek 158. Ajurweda Summit coraz bliżej i w tym odcinku zapraszam Cię do wysłuchania fragmentów kilku ciekawych rozmów. Część z nich znajdzie się w tej jubileuszowej 4. edycji, a część będzie dla Ciebie czymś nowym, zaskakującym być może spoza planowanej listy. Witam Cię w podcaście Agni Ajurweda zrozumiale i dostępnie. Nazywam się Maria Nowak-Szabat. Wspólnie z mężem Michałem od 8 lat prowadzę Agni Ajurweda. Pomagam kobietom skorzystać z Ajurwedy w życiu osobistym i zawodowym. W każdym odcinku otworzysz serce i umysł na tą piękną, starożytną wiedzę o życiu. Przede wszystkim będę mówić o tym, jak Ajurweda służy na ścieżce zawodowej. Niezależnie od tego, czy jesteś konsultantką Ajurwedy, marzysz o tym, żeby nią zostać, albo prowadzisz inny biznes, który chcesz zamienić w holistyczny biznes, czyli w biznes, który szanuje Twoje pięty achillesowe, w którym wiesz, jak je chronić i doskonale wiesz, jakie masz asy w rękawie. Ajurweda jest prosta, ale jej zrozumienie i zastosowanie w codziennym życiu, także w życiu zawodowym, wymaga wsparcia. Od zawsze była przekazywana w relacji nauczyciel-uczeń w formie otwierających serce i umysł opowieści. Bardzo się cieszę, że mogę się z Tobą dzielić moją pasją i doświadczeniem z prowadzenia 8 lat firmy w tej przestrzeni. Firmy, która stała się 7-cyfrowym, holistycznym biznesem. Bardzo się cieszę, że spędzisz ten czas ze mną i starą, mądrą Ajurwedą. Na początek dr John'a Scharfenberg, osoba, która jest dla mnie bardzo inspirująca, pokazuje, co jest możliwe na scenie niemieckojęzycznej, jeśli chodzi o szerzenie propagowania Ajurwedy. Wspaniała rozmowa na temat zrozumienia cyklu menstruacyjnego kobiet dzięki mocy Ajurwedy.
Are you seeing any patterns like, how much of each dosha can be reflected in the cycle? So for example, if someone has more vata, how it affects or reflects in his menstruation?
Yeah, so if we look at the cycle itself, maybe we start there. We have all 3 doshas in the cycle. So if I may talk you quickly through that so that everybody understands, and then we can go into, how every dosha affects the cycle. So, if we look at our cycle, it's more or less 28 days long, so more or less like a month. And I always like to compare it to the moon, where we have, the phases with the new moon, the full moon, the moon which is getting less, and then the new moon. This is the phase where you're not really seeing a moon in the sky at all. And also the cycle is having these different phases. So when we start with the phase where we have the ovulation, this is the pitta phase. The ovulation is when we are able to receive a new life. So this is the pitta phase. We have a lot of energy. We are in our power. We have a good complexion. We feel our best. And of course, this is the whole pitta energy running through us. And if we are in this ovulation or pitta phase, it goes from the ovulation more or less until the period starts or short before. And we could also see that like the summer of our cycle. Everything is there, power, sun, energy. And then we go more to the autumn phase or the vata phase. And the vata phase, this is short before the bleeding starts until the end of the bleeding. And the vata phase, it's in the flow, it's moving. So we cannot say from day 1 until day 5. It's more a flowing system. But in the vata phase, we have a lot of the vata energy. And lots of women, especially if they have a lot of vata in their constitution or have a lot of vata energy otherwhere in their lives, can really feel that in the PMS, the premenstrual syndrome, that they have a lot of hunger for sweets, that they have mood swings, that the skin is not good, that they feel nervous, that there is anxiety. So all these common things. And this is, if we look at it from an Ayurvedic point of view, it's the vata energy moving through us. And so from the bleeding, from the vata phase, we move to kapha. And this is, kind of the end of bleeding until we have the ovulation again. And kapha, we know that it's like, the late winter or springtime. There, what happens? Our whole body is kind of recovering. Our uterus starts, to get ready for the next ovulation. So it's like the spring where a lot of new things come out, where we are nurtured, where we are getting new substance. Yeah, all these kapha qualities we also have everywhere when we look at kapha. And in the kapha phase, this is also the phase where we as women, we get very grounded. We can look inside. We are strong. Yeah, we have our substance. And we always move through these 3 doshas. So ovulation, pitta, lots of energy, lots of power, lots of like the male energy. Then we go through the vata phase, where we are a bit less grounded, but which is also a phase where we can really tap into our intuition, where we are very creative if we let ourselves. And then we go to the kapha phase, like the new beginning, where it's time to withdraw, take our power back, nurture ourselves. And imagine if we always through the month go through these 3 different doshas. We can basically use these 3 different dosha phases also for ourselves. So the pitta phase would be naturally something where I go out, where I have meetings, where I maybe, get things done, where we can really, really use the pitta energy. The vata energy could be something where I can, think about new ideas and try myself out, do creative things. And the kapha phase, so while we have the menstruation and a few days after that, we can really use to take our time to rest, to release, and to regain new energy. And if we as women would weave that into our month every time, we would go so naturally with our flow, with our energies, that we basically could use every phase for ourselves in a very powerful way. But the problem is, in our society, in our daily life, we always tend to have, or we wish for the pitta energy, be productive, effective, doing, but we only basically have one phase in the month where we are really into that power, and we also need the other ones. And if we are in our vata phase or in our kapha phase and we try to be pitta, then it starts that we are not feeling in our natural flow, we are not in our balance, and then we feel the symptoms we talked about before. And of course, then the different doshas in our constitution also weave into that. If I tend to be a very person which is having a lot of vata, as I said before, the days before I get my menstruation where the vata is very high, this can really, really get my imbalance high. Also, when I'm a pitta person and I have the ovulation, I maybe get too much in my power, if I don't kind of balance it out. Or if I'm a kapha person and I get in the kapha phase, this can really make me lethargic if I don't know about that. And then different symptoms can arise, which can kind of pull off the whole cycle and our personal constitution.
I pora na doktora Vasanta, ucieleśnienie Ajurwedy. Był to dla mnie ogromny zaszczyt móc zadać mu swoje pytania dotyczące drogi życiowej, dharmy związanej z Ajurwedą. Posłuchaj mądrości tego cudownego i inspirującego nauczyciela i lekarza Ajurwedy, doktora Vasanta.
In Ayurveda, dharma, artha, kam and moksha. Dharma is your righteous duty. Artha is monetary success. Kam means fulfillment of your positive desire. And moksha is enlightenment. These are the main 4 pillars of life. But what is my dharma? Either I can ask Jyotish guy to find out what is my dharma, because Jyotish person will tell you according to astrology what is your dharma. But apart from astrology, you are the foundation of astrology. So you just watch what is your dharma in this particular moment. Dharma means righteous action. Dharma means righteous duty. And dharma means self-awareness. So what is my dharma as a father? What is my dharma as a mother? And what is my dharma as a husband and wife? So dharma is a duty, dharma is a responsibility, and dharma is a right action that comes. So by observing our dharma, we can create a foundation, because dharma is the foundation of life. There are so many dharma, Hindu dharma, Muslim dharma, Islam dharma. But what is dharma? Dhru means to hold, dharana. And dharma means your self-knowing, swadharma. Swadharma means knowing yourself, who you are. Knowing myself, who am I? And by knowing myself, who am I, that knowledge will bring me right action at the time of situation. That is dharma. And I think without meditation, you will never ever know what is your dharma. Meditate upon your heart and find out what is your dharma. And that dharma will bring righteousness, righteous behavior. And that is the glory. Because dharma brings austerity. Dharma brings spiritual awakening. Dharma is discipline. And dharma become rituals. So all these are connected when we know our dharma.
Kolejna dr Kulrit Choudhury, autorka książki Ajurwedyjski detoks, ale także autorka książki o uzdrawiającej mocy dźwięków, jeszcze nie przetłumaczonej na język polski, Sound Medicine. I właśnie w tym kontekście odbyłyśmy rozmowę na temat nauki, wiedzy o mantrach. Bardzo serdecznie polecam Ci tą osobę. Wspaniała, inspirująca historia jej życia i dochodzenia do dźwięku mantr jako narzędzia osobistego uzdrowienia i narzędzia stosowanego w pracy z klientami, pacjentami.
And today's sound medicine is the topic which I find more and more interesting for my clients, the topic of the special sacred sounds, so mantras.
Yes, and I really took mantras for granted simply because I grew up with them. I was taught to meditate at a very young age. And so I took them for granted because they were always in the backdrop of my life. And so I always had the benefits of mantras in my life. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I became a neurologist and then seeing, patients with neurodegenerative conditions and adding the use of sound as a healing tool that I saw the acceleration of, their progress. When I say acceleration of their progress, we're not just talking about, their physical issues got better, but there was a healing that began to happen on a deep level of life. And I think that is what people are starting to reach for, is this deeper level of healing. So today I'm going to explain why sound is able to do that and why it's such an important part of, your overall recommendations in Ayurvedic medicine, in addition to diet and lifestyle recommendations, that sound for accomplishing the ultimate purpose, which is really understanding who you are, being connected, to life itself, and to find that peace that it's, in my opinion, almost impossible to do if you do not incorporate the aspect of sacred sound, which is such a core part of Ayurveda, into your practice, either as an Ayurvedic practitioner for your patients or as a patient receiving Ayurvedic advice. So before we really begin with even understanding what sound is, we first really have to answer the question of what is a human being? And your students, Maria, probably have already began to debunk the ways in which they were taught about what a human being is, and that you start to realize that it's much more than just these bones, these muscles, and what I'm seeing. But for the majority of people, what they experience as a human being is really what they see in the mirror, and perhaps an understanding that in addition to what they see in the mirror, there's this abstract concept of the mind, which psychology has, has focused on helping people to unravel. But most people do not see themselves as anything beyond the mind and the body. Mm-hmm. And I love this quote from Einstein, that we are slow down sound and light waves, a walking bundle of frequencies tuned to the cosmos. And I think for so many people, when they initially hear quotes like this, especially from great scientists like Einstein, they think that there must be something poetic about it. And, the truth is that the Siddhas and the rishis who had first perceived Ayurvedic medicine, they described our nature in the exact same way as not just physical beings, but vibrational beings. And Rudolf Steiner said there will come a time when a diseased condition will not be described as it is today by physicians and psychologists. So it covers both of us here.
Yeah.
But it will be spoken of in musical terms, as one would speak of a piano that was out of tune. And what's so beautiful about this quote by Steiner is that it really echoes the ways of the past in which they approached disease, where sound was such an important part of the healing. There were many things that were used, including things like light therapy, but sound was such an essential part of helping the individual to become back in tune with who they really are.
Dr John'a Douillard. I ten moment, kiedy ktoś znany od lat jest w drugim okienku na Zoomie i możesz z nim porozmawiać na żywo. To był dla mnie ekscytujący moment. 2021 rok i temat oddechu, oddech transformacyjny, a współczesna nauka, fantastyczna energia, ogromnie takiego poukładanego, wykształconego zachodniego umysłu, ale z tą inspiracją i głębokością, jaką lubię w Ajurwedzie i we wschodzie. Serdecznie zapraszam do posłuchania.
For today, you choose to speak about pranayama, which is I feel very current topic, helpful topic for the challenges that we are facing now.
Yeah, no doubt. I was interested in breathing way back in the early 80s. I was writing a book called Body, Mind, and Sport. I started writing that book in 1985. Finally got it published in 1994. And it was a book about breathing, the difference between nose breathing and mouth breathing and exercise. We published studies in the International Journal of Neuroscience on the difference between mouth breathing and nose breathing during exercise. And sort of the entree into pranayama. And it turns out that when you breathe through your nose, it's dramatically different than when you breathe through your mouth. And when you breathe through your nose, the brain waves change. We actually proved that during vigorous exercise, the brain, and think about vigorous exercise not for just exercise, but think about it as stress in your life. Think about going to work, driving here, driving there, doing these. That's all stress. Exercise is just one kind of stress. So imagine having your exercise stress or your daily stress and your brain producing the same brainwave pattern and coherence pattern that you would have in a meditation. That's what we proved and studied back in the early 1990s, comparing nose breathing versus mouth breathing during exercise. When the mouth was open, the brain was completely frenetic in a beta activated, stressed out state. When the mouth was closed, the brain went into an alpha brainwave coherent state, what you'd see in a meditation. We measured the perceived exertion of that exercise stress. When the mouth was open, they were feeling 10 out of 10. 10 was the hardest, the more exertion you could feel. They were maxing out at a 10 at a 200 watts of resistance on an exercise bicycle. It's pretty intense. Mm-hmm. And then when their mouth was closed, breathing through their nose, for the same work, they were breathing at 4 out of 10. So significantly less stress for the same work. Like who doesn't want that? And then we also measured the breath rates were significantly lower, 48 breaths per minute when the mouth was open, huffing and puffing, and only 14 breaths per minute when the mouth was closed during vigorous exercise. So all of a sudden, we started realizing that there was a lot of benefit of breathing slower. In the Shiva Samhita, they talk about, and people have probably heard that we get a certain number of breaths when you're born, and if you spend them too quickly, you're out of money, you're done. But if you can actually lengthen your breath, then all these sort of crazy things happen. You live longer. When I was in India studying Ayurveda, and I did research on nose breathing versus mouth breathing when I was there. I kept running into studies that talked about how, nose breathing infantries were compared to mouth breathing infantries, and the nose breathers never got sick. how moms and dads would train their children by lying them on their side and tucking their chin and closing their mouth to make sure that they slept with their mouth closed. Well, when you sleep with your mouth closed, you're sucking in through your nose the nitric oxide gas, which is produced right here at 100%. Nitric oxide won the Nobel Prize in 1998 as a panacea. It cured everything. And Nobel Prize winning scientists generally don't use the word panacea ever, but they did in 1998 when they discovered nitric oxide. So, and it's the most powerful antiviral gas. So you're out talking, eating, whatever, all day long with your mouth open. You go home, close your mouth, go to sleep, and you suck in all this antiviral gas, which washes and rinses, and it kind of gives you an antiseptic scrub for your whole respiratory system, so you never get sick.
Kate Stillman, czyli moja amerykańska kuzynka, tak żartujemy, spotykając się co roku na nagraniach, kiedy Kate mówi: o, Maria, to nasza doroczna randka. Tak na marginesie, babcia Kate była Polką. A nasza rozmowa z 2022 roku dotyczy bycia liderką w świecie Ajurwedy. Mocny temat dla mocnych kobiet. Bardzo serdecznie Ci polecam.
We're a social species. We are like the most pro-social species on the planet. Like we love to connect. We love to talk. We love to interact. We love to build infrastructure and systems and projects and all that together. And so by building growth communities, so communities where people grow and change and evolve, which is very different than safe communities. So safe communities are often, I find, pretty, they lack a progressiveness. Mm-hmm. So, in the past, I think with a lot of the work around trauma, it's like, oh, create safe spaces. And it's like, yeah, I'd rather people were in growth spaces, mm-hmm. even though growth might feel less safe because it's a little edgy. To grow means that I'm not going to hold you to who you've been in the past. I'm going to hold you to who you could become next. Mm-hmm. Right. And you're going to hold me to who I could become next. And we're going to work on that together. We're going to grow together. Mm-hmm. And that's what I find is the role of I'd say all holistic practitioners, is it's like create communities of your clients so that they're all growing under your sphere of influence, and that your job as leaders create infrastructure for their growth. Mm-hmm. And what that does is it's really deeply satisfying for the leader. So it's rejuvenating, and then they don't risk burnout from like trying to get one client, to help them progress, and then the next client to help them progress, and the next client to help them progress all one-on-one. It's like, no, they'll progress a lot faster if you create a network of them, if you create a network where they can support each other and have empathy and sympathy and actually mentoring, and exactly what we model in yoga health coaching, like exactly what we do there, because we know it works faster and better, and it's way easier. It's surprisingly easier for the leader to have deep ojas in a better business structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great use of group, because it's basically what you teach, that you being holistic practitioner, Ayurveda practitioner, can work not one-on-one, it can work within the group, so the group multiplies, because there is a synergy of the group members. So basically it's 10 times more than one-on-one, in every
exactly. That's exactly right, because they now have friendships within the group that are growth oriented. And often people come, like the person you described before, like oh, poor me, grass is greener on the other side, I'm the only one with these hardships. In a dynamic group, we almost never hear victim mindset, mm-hmm. because the group ethics and the group structure is based on growth mindset. And so people find they get in there and they're like, oh, I can't bitch and moan. Oh, I can't complain. Like I've got to take control of my reality. Mm-hmm. And I've got to show up as someone who's growing, who can add value to the group. And that might be the only relationships that they're in that are growth oriented. When we find most of our members coming in are not in growth oriented relationships, even though they might be, considered fairly progressive people.
I na zakończenie tego odcinka dr Suhas Khirsagar. Rozmowa z nim była jednym z moich spełnionych marzeń. ponieważ rozmawialiśmy o jego fenomenalnej książce, nadal nie przetłumaczonej na język polski, w oryginale Vedic Counseling, po polsku poradnictwo wedyjskie. Taki jest też tytuł i temat naszej rozmowy. Kiedy przeczytałam tą książkę po raz pierwszy, to poczułam, jakby ktoś wiedział, o jakiej jakości w kształceniu konsultantek mi chodzi. Serdecznie Ci polecam tą rozmowę, jej fragment, którego masz okazję teraz posłuchać.
You cannot fix the mind and the body, which are opposites. You have to bring in the spiritual component. So Ayurveda is not just the mind and the body medicine, but it's mind, body, and spirit medicine. So until and unless you have the capacity or develop the capacity of giving your client a spiritual guidance, it doesn't take you very far. There are new models of counseling that are happening, and it's a new emerging paradigm. The paradigm is all about wellness. People want to be healthy and happy. And the new age medicine that is emerging worldwide, globally, is a consciousness-based approach to health and healing. That's what yoga is all about. That's what Ayurveda is all about. That's what all the Vedic sciences are all about. Because as you become what we call it as health conscious or aware, and you start living in an enlightened manner, then health is often understood as a byproduct of enlightenment. Because when I wrote my book, Change Your Schedule, Change Your Life, everybody was super busy. And everybody thought that being busy means they're happy. But everyone I met is they're busy and they're unhappy. And so this time constraint with high pace of life, 3G, 4G, 5G, 6G, is changing the pace of your mind and making you more and more unhappy. And I think we need to help our clients to really help them understand their life on a bigger spectrum scale, understanding the self, understanding their connection with Mother Nature and the universe, and remind them the main goals of life: dharma, doing what you're good at, earning money in a rightful way that fulfills all your karma or desires, and be on a pursuit of enlightenment no matter what you're doing. There should be some quiet time for yourself to pursue higher states of consciousness. And I think Ayurveda or all the Vedic sciences have given us phenomenal self-realization tools. And we don't use them enough in an Ayurvedic practice. Yoga, Ayurveda, mantra, meditation, pranayama, panchakarma, diet, exercise, Vedic laws of right living, various multimodality treatments that all sink in together. They all talk each other's language, whether you talk about Sapatya Veda or Vastu, or the lingo or the language of Jyotish or Vedic astrology. Gandharva Veda, which is the science of music melodies. Sanskrit is a phonetic language. The sound that we talk about in Sanskrit, and Sanskrit is the mother of all Indo-European languages, and it's the sound which is related with the pulsating vibration of the body itself. Using outdoors, forest bathing, spending time in nature, using silence is a very underutilized healing modality. Fasting is a very underutilized healing modality. Withdrawal from senses, minimizing the needs, finding your group, your team to do bhakti yoga, satsang, having a community that feeds each other and living with people that give you energy and allows you towards enlightened living. So this Vedic tradition of self-knowledge and cosmic knowledge has to be infused in every patient. As soon as the patient becomes self-aware and enlightened to a certain extent, your job becomes rather easy.
No dobrze, dzięki, że jesteś, dzięki, że słuchasz. 27 maja, 4. jubileuszowa edycja Ajurweda Summit 2023, wersja The Best of, w której wybrałam i skomponowałam dla Ciebie cieszące się największym powodzeniem, uznaniem, przynoszące najwięcej wglądów nagrania z ostatnich 3 lat z kilkoma perełkami i nowościami. Ajurweda Summit będzie dla nas dorocznym świętem Ajurwedy, także okazją, żeby te z Was, które chcą dołączyć do 10., także jubileuszowej edycji Szkoły Ajurwedy, mogły to zrobić w promocyjnej, przedsprzedażowej cenie, korzystając z wielu dobrodziejstw, m.in. z letniej Szkoły Ajurwedy. Jeśli to jest coś dla Ciebie, to zerknij na linki pod tym nagraniem. Znajdziesz tu link prowadzący do zapisu na bezpłatną wersję Ajurweda Summit, na wersję dla VIP-ów oraz na listę oczekujących na przedsprzedażową ofertę zapisów do szkoły Ajurwedy. Dziękuję Ci bardzo serdecznie, że jesteś. Notatki jak zwykle pod linkiem agni-ajurweda.pl/158. Do usłyszenia.